Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Just double check and make sure I am still the governor. We're going to redo that introduction. Well, you never know. It's New York State politics. It's rough. You never know. It is great to be here once again, surrounded by so many people who are the true believers, who believe that even dry-sounding words like infrastructure can be brought to life, and that's what excites me so much. And so I am joined here by a group of incredible individuals I've had the pleasure to work with, and you'll hear from one of them in a couple of minutes, Jan Lieber, the chair and CEO of the MTA. Let's give him a round of applause. We're waiting on some very important news that might be breaking. The Senate right now is voting. I just checked in with my former colleagues, still my colleagues, but I used to be president of the Senate, and to see that they're about to possibly confirm you as the now permanent CEO and chairman of the MTA. So we dropped the word acting. But that's, I should probably say that's embargoed until it's official. So let's just get that right. And I also see Hope Knight is here as well, who is the incredible individual I've asked to lead our economic development initiatives, and a congressperson that I had a chance to work closely with a decade ago when I served in Congress on another end of the state. But every time I sat down with him, he whispered things like Cross Harbor Rail Tunnel, Cross Harbor Rail Freight Tunnel, and then I became governor. It's all I heard about. So Jerry Nadler truly committed to the cause of improving people's lives through infrastructure. And I'm partial to BPs because I used to be the equivalent of a BP, a county official, at least another part of the state. So I have great respect for Antonio Reynoso, our borough president right here in Brooklyn. Hit the ground running with a lot of great announcements. Someone asked if I was the first press conference, and like, no, he'd already done with Senator Gillibrand. Okay, all right. But in the first couple of weeks, right, it's great to be here. We'll do many more things together. I had a great relationship with your predecessor for 7 years, so we worked very closely together. And Donovan Richards, our borough president in Queens, who we've had many events with as well. And speaking of the Senate, Senator Andrew Gonardis is here as well, another champion of these projects as well. We also are joined by, because we have friendships and collaborations and relationship with the City of New York, newsflash again, New York City Deputy Mayor for Operations, Mira Josie is here. Mira. And I believe Council Member Alexa Aviles is here. Perhaps she's joining us. Oh, yeah, okay. So why are we all gathered here today? I've been here before. As all of you know, as Lieutenant Governor, I did a little bit of travel, probably more than 1,000 times right here in the borough of Brooklyn, but who's counting? I was. And I have been here to see the extraordinary transformation of this facility into something that is vibrant. It creates people's jobs. I was here at the Biobat facility. I know they're expanding, so this is exciting for me as well. So great to be here today. And also to talk about, as I mentioned, one of my favorite topics, which is infrastructure. Why do I care so much about infrastructure? Well, a number of reasons. Is my time on local government, we obsessed about infrastructure. We worried about what was happening above the ground and under the ground. You know, was there enough money for our residents to have better sewer lines and roads and bridges and, yes, even potholes? We talked about them all the time. We always said to ourselves, if only Albany would give us more money. We waited a long time, and now we have an opportunity, a once-in-a-generational opportunity to make the investments that should have been made all along, because now they're more expensive when you make them later, but we're getting started, but also to just reimagine some of the infrastructure that has been lying fallow for so many years that no one saw the possibilities of. And that's what we're going to talk about today, this brand new concept known as the Interborough Express. And what it's going to do is create a lifeline, a connection, because that to me is what infrastructure is all about. It's about creating connection between communities, between people and their jobs, people and their families, people and their friends. It's all about connections. And that's why I get so energized when we talk about infrastructure, because it is a quality of life issue. If you can shave 30 or 40 minutes off someone's commute every single day, that is a gift. That means more time to pack up your kids' lunches in the morning, something I did until they were about 4 or 5, and I taught them how to do it themselves. Or at the end of the day, you want to read books to your kids or help them with the homework. That time back in your day is a gift. And that's what I want to continue to do as we expand our infrastructure ideas all over this state to focus on how we can add time and quality to people's lives and to have them have a positive experience. Even when we talk about, yes, Penn Station, people should be able to come in from wherever they boarded the train, come into a place that lifts their spirits and lifts their souls and doesn't make them just want to stare at the ground and be depressed for the rest of the day. So we're fixing that as well. But this is an opportunity for us here because what we have is a different change in demographics. For a long time, all the connections were to take people from the outer boroughs, and I don't really like that phrase, outer boroughs, we'll just say it for today's purposes, always was back and forth to Manhattan, and that's great. A lot of great jobs in Manhattan. We want to keep Manhattan strong. It's the epicenter of so many key industries. We want people to do that. But it also ignores the reality that more people have found their homes in places like Brooklyn and Queens, and not just their homes and their families, but also the jobs are now spreading out here. So we've been missing that logical connection to find more ways for people to get from one borough to the other without having to go to Manhattan and back, or to have a long, even in this case we're talking about, a 70-minute bus ride. 70 minutes. Who wants to have a 70-minute bus? I have been on every pothole between these two boroughs. It is not a fun experience when you're on a bus ride. So that is what we're addressing here. So we're going to give people more time for their jobs, their families, their lives, and make the connections that are necessary. But we do have, let's acknowledge this, New York City in this region has the greatest transit system in the world. But we can always do things better. We can have a strategic, smart, and savvy plan that reuses an abandoned line 14 miles and to say, what can we do with this? So I am so excited here today to announce that we have finished a feasibility study. See, I said make it happen fast, and it's fast. I told you, I'm impatient. So the feasibility study is completed. You'll be able to see that very shortly. And what that does is launch the next phase, because there's always another phase when you're building infrastructure. The community engagement in tandem with the environmental impact statements, and do this whole review to identify the smartest way to use this line. And to talk about, is it bus rapid transit? Is it light rail? Is it heavy rail? What are the options? We don't have those answers today, but we know we have a path forward. And it starts with the completion of the feasibility study that I'm announcing right now. And you are here to hear it first. So we also have tremendous opportunities to say, what about that Cross Harbor Freight Tunnel? And if this line, and which we're heading toward, can be designed to be able to accommodate commuter traffic as well as freight, the benefit will be to get more trucks and cars off the roads, something that we know is better for our environment, because everything we're going to do is have an eye toward not today, but also the future of our environment. And so that's why this is smart as well. We're directed the Port Authority to get moving on that tunnel, and Jerry Nadler is going to make sure we do, and we're going to be able to make more announcements very shortly. And one of the reasons we're able to do all this is the leadership in Washington. And you don't always hear the credit from a state going to Washington because everybody always wants to keep it for themselves. Well, the reality is Joe Biden and his gutsy leadership that led to the passage of the infrastructure bill, a bipartisan bill that was supported by our leaders in Congress, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Congressman Jerry Nadler, and those from our delegation who voted for this deserve the credit of what we're able to accomplish here today and in so many other areas where we're going to be able to improve people's lives. So I want to say thank you to them. Thank you to them for answering the cries for help for so long from states and localities that have wanted to do these projects but never were able to. So this Interborough Express will connect New Yorkers with 17, count them, you heard it here first, 17 subway lines and the Long Island Railroad. That gives them a lot of options on where their work is going to be. We project there'll be up to 88,000 riders every day, and end to end it'll take about 40 minutes, resulting in a savings of about 30 minutes each way. And it's also going to help the people who live right here in this neighborhood, and those who live in Queens at the other end, and all those who live along the lines between Sunset Park, Bay Ridge, and Jackson Heights. And right now, who's in this corridor? About 900,000 people. That's who we're trying to serve. Those are the people who need that connection and to be lifted out of their everyday existence of trying to catch a bus to get to their jobs. So we're going to be helping those individuals, as well as, my favorite phrase, creating more jobs. We anticipate that this project will create and retain over 20,000 good-paying union jobs, and that's worth a round of applause. So I say, as we enter this extraordinary time, we come up with extraordinary solutions, and we don't look backwards. We continue leaping into the future with a sense of optimism, with a sense of a spirit of can-do. Yes, we can get this done, because all of us in this room have one purpose in mind, is to lift up the lives of fellow New Yorkers, and we can do it with projects like this. And that's why this was a major priority of mine. You heard about it in my State of the State, you heard about it in my budget address, and now you're hearing about it in person. The feasibility study is done, and we are ready to get to work. So you're going to hear many more announcements. Everybody get ready. I'm coming. Yep, it's coming. You might as well just follow me around, because we're going to be doing a lot of great announcements. And this is what we're asked to do on behalf of the voters and the individuals who put their faith in all of us, is to deliver for them. And today, we are delivering for the people of Brooklyn and Queens, and we're just getting started. So with that, any news on this guy? I have to introduce him as acting? Is this acting CEO chairman? Any news flash? No? You're still acting, still acting, but maybe by the time we're all done with our conversations, we'll be able to say this is now the permanent. But in my heart, you're not temporary. You are there because we need you to continue on. Jana Lieber. Thank you, Jana. Double up.
Thank you so much, Governor. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for taking ideas and getting excited so quickly and turning them into reality. That's why we're here today, is because an idea that had gestated for some time out there in the think world, and the MTA had started to look at, you grabbed, and you said this is the time to do something that's transformative and really takes account of the way the world is changing. So thank you for your leadership. This is exciting for the MTA, but it's really, as a Brooklynite, wow, I am just amazingly excited. A version of this idea has been talked about at different times for a long time, and it was championed by advocacy groups like, and I have to acknowledge them, Regional Plan Association, represented here today by our friend Kate Slevin, Riders Alliance, represented by Mira Aldis-Deckert, Transportation Alternatives, represented by Rose Ushinowski. These are all people who kept alive this idea, not the specifics, but the vision of, we got to connect Brooklyn and Queens, we got to deal with the way the demographics of this region are developing. But we're also here, and I'm going to talk about Congressman Nadler's role in a moment, but because the Port Authority, in tandem with the Congressman, has been working on this idea of freight, and that we came together to prove to ourselves and to the world that a meaningful, revived passenger corridor on this right-of-way could coexist with the radically transformative freight vision that Congressman Nadler and others have been talking about for quite some time. And I also want to acknowledge my dear friend and predecessor, Joe Loda, who's here not just because he is an MTA legend, but also because he represents, he is the leader of the NYU Langone Hospital System, which has a big outpost right here at what I still call Lutheran, but is part of NYU. So thank you, Joe. Thank you for everything you've done. We're here to celebrate, as the governor said, the preliminary report, which makes it clear that the project is in fact feasible, and a large part of that is because we are making a super efficient, again, credit to the governor for grabbing and passionately advancing this idea that we need to get more out of the infrastructure we have. Some cases you have to build anew. The 2nd Avenue subway is using some old tunnels, but a lot of it has to be built anew, bored out of rock. But here we have a right-of-way, and we have a way to connect Brooklyn and Queens, and not just Brooklyn and Queens in general. We're talking about some of the driest transit deserts, as we say, in the city. East Flatbush, populous, dense, dynamic, no rail transit to speak of. Maspeth, Middle Village, Queens. These are areas that will be transformed because we love the bus system. I am passionate about buses because so many neighborhoods rely disproportionately about buses. But those folks need more easy connectivity to the amazing access and opportunity that comes from our rail system. So that's what we're doing here. Not all of our travel is Manhattan-centric anymore. You've seen some of the images that are cycling on the screen, which show, and this is a little man bites dog story, there are more people in Brooklyn and Queens together who are going to jobs in their borough or in the other of the 2 boroughs than there are crossing the East River. We have to adjust our transportation system to deal with that. And of course, this is a fundamental equity issue. Communities, disproportionately low income, and communities of color who are not in the middle of our transit system will be connected as a result of those 17 stations that can be built on this line, connecting them to the spokes of this historically Manhattan-centric system, but will now be accessible to everyone. We have a chance to do better. I want to just finish by applauding the governor once again. I'm not going to stop doing it because this is transformative for the MTA and our region to start to make the change that will adjust our system to the way the demographics and the way the city and the region are evolving. But I'm also excited to be able to introduce my old friend Jerry Nadler, who I've known for God knows how long, almost my whole life. I was a West Sider originally, although I long ago emigrated, as my father said, to Brooklyn. And Jerry has been in Congress 30 years, but going back to when you were in the Assembly, you were passionate about transportation, but also specifically about freight. And freight isn't always sexy because it doesn't have a natural human constituency, but the constituency is all of us who breathe the air that Jerry has been talking about. All of us who deal with the fact that our goods and services are more expensive because they have to be trucked in from a port in New Jersey. So Jerry, thank you for leading this fight, and it's my honor to introduce Congressman, Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler.
Well, thank you very much, Jano, for that introduction. Today we are here to announce the release of the feasibility study of the Interborough Express, a project that can coexist with the Cross Harbor Rail Freight Tunnel down the Bay Ridge Line right-of-way. I want to thank our Governor, Kathy Hochul, who has become a strong supporter for both projects, Interborough Express and the Cross Harbor Rail Freight Tunnel. She is a leader who seeks to solve the toughest of problems, and I have tremendous respect for that. The Interborough Express is a project that has the potential to provide much-needed transit access to underserved neighborhoods of Brooklyn and Queens. And it can coexist with the Cross Harbor Rail Freight Tunnel, which I have supported for more than 40 years, from my time in the State Assembly to serving in the U.S. Congress. The Cross Harbor Tunnel, which will soon be undergoing environmental impact statement by the Port Authority, would finally connect the New York metropolitan region to the national freight rail grid by removing trucks from our streets and diverting them to the underutilized rail network. It will change the way we move goods through our region for the better, with economic, environmental, health, safety, and cost-saving benefits for millions of people. The Cross Harbor Rail Freight Project is designed to remedy the fact that New York City is the only major city in the world that is not directly connected to its country's national freight rail system. Without this key rail link, more than 1 billion tons of freight move through the greater New York region each year, primarily by truck, with truck congestion adding an estimated $2.5 billion annually to the cost of delivering goods to consumers and businesses. Trucks transport about 90% of the freight, while rail handles only 2 to 3%, with most freight arriving by rail at points west of New York and relying on trucks to reach their final destinations. It costs as much to move goods from New Jersey to Manhattan as it does to move them 500 miles or more in some other areas of the United States. In the next 20 years, freight to, from, and through this region is expected to increase by at least 37%, beyond the capacity of our roadways to handle, thereby putting an absolute lid on economic development. After generations of neglect, New York is once again building for the future, and by investing in world-class transportation projects across the state, we drive economic activity and help make our state even greater. And again, I want to thank our new governor for her vision in supporting these projects. Now it's my privilege to introduce the Queensborough President, Donovan Richards.
Thank you, Jerry. And first, let me start by thanking the governor for her vision. And, you know, it's very difficult to get to Brooklyn, but I'm happy that my passport was stamped. You know, the governor is bringing everybody together. You know, the Brooklyn Borough President, the new Brooklyn Borough President, Antonio Reynoso, stamped my passport this morning. So thank you so much and congratulations. Now, don't worry, certainly, because we're here to talk about a project that benefits both your borough and mine, Antonio. And I'm not going to joke about which borough is better this morning or this afternoon. We all know the answer to that question anyway. But I'd like to start once again by thanking our governor for the bold vision she's laid out in both her State of the State address and her proposed executive budget over the last few days. She's putting her money where her mouth is when it comes to pandemic recovery, and we are certainly grateful for that. Just make sure you're sending a lot more of that money to Queens than Brooklyn. But what impresses me is her eye toward the future and her creative thinking on how we can improve the economic vitality of the outer boroughs by creating new public transportation options. And as we often allude to, is the fact that transportation is the great equalizer. And that's exactly what this proposal is all about. In my borough and in Brooklyn, we know that the overall health of any urban community, especially ones as large and as diverse as ours, is heavily dependent on the reliability of its public transportation system. But for far too many Queens families and communities, the inability to travel between boroughs in a quick and efficient manner has been an unnecessary detriment to their economic health and, quite frankly, their ability to grow. By transforming this existing freight line connecting Bay Ridge and Jackson Heights, if you like to eat, you want to get to Jackson Heights, into a public transit option, we can connect now thousands of families to new economic opportunities in each borough, all while dramatically cutting commute times. And I often joke sometimes, and it's not really a joke, on some days trying to get into Queens to Brooklyn to Manhattan, it could seem easier to get to Florida by plane than Manhattan or Brooklyn by train. No longer will you have to take the subway all the way into Manhattan, however, just to get to Brooklyn or Queens. No longer will you have to transfer from one bus to the next bus to get to Brooklyn. We're talking about a single 40-minute ride from end to end, and that is a true game changer for thousands of people on either side of the Queens or Brooklyn border. There are details to be ironed out, of course, here, and I look forward to working both closely with Governor Hochul and, of course, my counterpart, Antonio Reynoso. But I commend the governor for making improved out-of-borough connectivity a central theme of her administration. This is what we mean when we talk about building back better. It doesn't mean going back to the New York City of February 2020, because we know that that city wasn't working for far too many of us. It definitely wasn't working for commuters in transportation deserts like the ones I've lived in, where spending hours on the rails or the roads each day is all too common. We need outside-of-the-box solutions to problems that existed well before the pandemic. We need innovative thinking to address the issues the pandemic worsened. The Interborough Express is a perfect example of that kind of thinking. I couldn't be prouder to support this project. I just want to warn you, Madam Governor, expect many, many phone calls from me about this project and others. And of course, we're joined by Tom Gretsch, who is the Queens Chamber of Commerce president. I'm sure he'll be blowing your phone up too. But I look forward to partnering with you to make the Interborough Express a reality, and you have a reliable partner in me. Queens families deserve the best, and so do those in Brooklyn. And the best is what we're going to give them. Now it gives me great, distinct honor to introduce the Brooklyn Borough President, someone that I've known, it feels like, close to 2 decades, and we both served as staffers to city council members, then were elected city council members, co-chaired the Progressive Caucus together as city council members, and led respective committees. And he is someone I am so proud of, because when I see him, I see myself. He's a kid from South Williamsburg, had nothing given to him, did not grow up with a silver spoon, but fought his way up to the top, gave it his all and served his community. And because of that, the people of Brooklyn rightly elected a champion for them. It gives me great distinct honor to now introduce the Brooklyn Borough President from that other borough, Antonio Reynoso.
Boy. First, very happy to be here. The center of the universe that is Brooklyn. Welcome all. The sun to the solar system of this here New York City solar system, I guess, is what I would call it. But one thing that Donovan and I will agree on is that the best borough in New York City is not Manhattan. That's one thing that we could agree on. But Donovan, my brother, I can't tell you, folks that look like us, that are raised the way we were raised, or that come from the circumstances that we come from, very rarely hold seats in offices like this one here. And to be able to come to Brooklyn to talk about a transportation project that is looking out for the interests of people that look like us and that grew up the way we did, as opposed to trying to connect us to Manhattan, where our economic development opportunities and growth really are starting to change. The dynamics of how we move around this city are starting to change. And if we want to talk about real economic development and growth, then we have to talk about Brooklyn and Queens. That is exactly what's happening here today. So I want to thank Governor Kathy Hochul for being thoughtful, for not hesitating, for putting your money where your mouth is and actually following through on this work. That is a rare thing when it comes to transportation infrastructure. So I just want to thank you so much for that work. And I think if we could give a round of applause for that work, I really want to do that. Let's really talk about it and be honest. We are a growing city that is going to need to change in a dynamic and quick way how goods and people are moving around in the city of New York. It has to be done. We know that the way we're receiving our goods now is a lot different than the way we were receiving it 20, 30, and 40 years ago, even 5 years ago. And the freight line and the work that we're doing when it comes to freight is extremely important and significant and something we can't lose sight of. Even as we're talking about an Interborough work that is moving people. But freight in itself is something that has to be discussed, and we want to continue to have that discussion related to the BQE, the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and so forth, and how exactly we could use that to move goods around. But now we're talking about people as well, right? Starting to have a conversation about places where I am encouraging the moving away or the over-reliance of vehicle use in Brooklyn, and I'm very aggressive about that, but have a hard time being able to pitch that in areas like this that have no transportation options or limited transportation options. But now I can say that. There are options out here that can make a difference and really make it so that you can even get to the great diverse borough of Queens, where we have great food, great culture, great experiences, great opportunities for jobs. Is something that we can finally tie together with the work that's happening here. So I'm so grateful and so happy to be here. I'll keep this very short. Don't forget to spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. And I want to say, Governor Hochul, on the first week that I was in Borough Hall, sent over thousands of supplies for PPE to my office, including testing kits that we are now distributing at a rapid rate. And it just really shows that day one, I was able to start working for my borough because of the support that you were able to give us. I want to thank you for what you've done for Brooklyn in this short amount of time. And the last time we saw each other was in Coney Island, talking about spring, which is another thing we have to work on, Donovan. Spring doesn't start when a groundhog tells us. In Brooklyn, it starts when the Wonder Wheel starts to move. I want to make sure that people understand that as well. But again, thank you so much for having me here. This is a great project, really excited about it, and we'll do everything we can to work alongside the governor to make it happen. Thank you.